For you. I am Lesroy Williams. Thank you very much for joining us for our program today. As usual, your company is appreciated from week to week. Today we are going to be having a discussion with officials from the Ministry of Tourism. And the discussion will center around what the Ministry of Tourism is doing at this present time. Of course, we know that the tourism industry has been one of the hardest hit industries because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Travel has been significantly reduced. Hotels have had to close. Restaurants have been severely impacted. And the industry in itself is struggling. Tourism is struggling. It is struggling amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. It is struggling to resurrect, to come back. But it will take some time. However, the Ministry of Tourism here in St. Kitts is not sitting down and doing nothing. It is preparing for the COVID-19 recovery. It is preparing to rebound and preparing for the new challenges that it will face in a post-COVID-19 world, a world that might be 5 to 10 years away. Today I have with me two panelists from the Ministry of Tourism. I have Mr. Kenny Manning, who is the Sustainable Tourism Coordinator. He works with the Sustainable Destination Council. Welcome, Mr. Manning.
Thank you. Welcome.
Additionally, I have Tessa Perkins, who is the Country Coordinator. She is a consultant with the Ministry of Tourism. Ms. Perkins, a pleasant welcome.
Thank you.
Right. Now, the Sustainable Destination Council. We hear a lot about sustainable tourism. Tourism not just for today, but tourism that will span generations to come. Tourism that is not just concerned with money, getting income, but tourism that is concerned with how we care for the environment, how we care for the planet, and looking at what our actions today can reap for many years down the road, and making sure that what we do is sustainable. Mr. Manning, you are on the Sustainable Destination Council. Could you give us just a brief history of the Sustainable Destination Council?
So, first of all, it's an advisory body to the Ministry of Tourism. It's comprised of public and private entities and non-governmental organizations. This organization would have started some years ago. I think the start point was 2017. And I can't remember the exact year right now. It's been more than 5 years. It's been a while. The point was, the reason that it came out was St. Kitts participated in a GSTC Early Adapter Program, which promoted sustainable initiatives and standards. About the GSTC is the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. So it's not, as you can see, it's a global movement that we are part of. And out of that program, it was highlighted that there needs to be more coordination, more partnerships within government entities, different agencies, but as well with the public and private and non-governmental agencies. It's a whole of society approach that needs to be done to maintain tourism on a sustainable basis, especially for us, a small island who is heavily dependent on tourism dollars.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that word sustainability,
yes,
is extremely important.
Yes.
And what is your understanding, Mr. Manning, of sustainability?
Well, if sustainability is more or less ensuring that something is sustainable, which is sustainable, it can be maintained, there's some longevity to it. Sustainable, it has, in my opinion, sustainability has to be in coordination within the ebb and flow of things, where you give and you take. For example, you give to the environment, take from the environment. Tourists come here, we give them experience, our culture, our love, our attention, a nice relaxing get away from the hustle and bustle of the regular day, and they give us dollars.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Now, Tessa, you're a consultant. Could you give us a little bit in terms of your background and your purpose here in the Federation?
Sure. So back home, I'm from the U.S. Back home, I'm a graduate student at the George Washington University, and I'm studying sustainable tourism. So very interconnected to what the Ministry of Tourism is all about here. I was brought on by Sustainable Travel International, a global NGO, back in April to come to St. Kitts as a coordinator and help with on-the-ground initiatives, programs, projects that the ministry and the Sustainable Destination Council are working on implementing. So that's my main purpose here. Personally, it's just been an incredible opportunity to learn from everyone at the ministry. They're doing incredible work. So it's been very enriching so far.
Mm-hmm. And what really propelled you, if you don't mind me calling you Tessa?
Yeah.
What propelled you into this area of study, this field of study? What really piqued your interest? Why are you involved in this area?
Sure. So I actually, in my undergraduate coursework, I studied geography. I've always been interested in the global perspective. As a child, my family traveled a lot. We lived in Europe for a few years, and it kind of sparked this joy in the act of traveling. As an undergrad, I studied geography and then just had a hard time thinking about what I could do to turn geography into a career path. So I was struggling a bit, I think, as most students do in my senior year, and then went on a trip actually abroad and really felt throughout my trip this tension in the place that I was visiting. I was in Italy. I just felt this tension where over-tourism was really causing an issue with local residents. And I felt that and I leaned into it, and I came home and I thought, okay, so tourism, there's something there. And I actually got on Google and just started searching for career paths within tourism, discovered the niche of sustainable tourism, and actually came across Sustainable Travel International first, which was fortuitous. And from there, I've just been on this steady, gradual path toward where I am today, and that's looked like a lot of one step forward, two steps back, figuring out how I fit into the big picture. I actually was working a full-time job before I started my graduate school and was laid off due to COVID. So it's been a lot of trial and error, but it's all led me to this point, so all for a good cause.
Right. Now Kenny,
Yes.
What are some of the projects that the Sustainable Destination Council is involved in at the moment, and what are some of the upcoming projects that you will be involved in?
Well, at this point in time, as we everyone knows we usually have a plastic-free July, which is still happening. But I want to point to the fact that we're looking to expand plastic-free July this year into the Plastic Be Gone project. I think I would have mentioned it last time I was here with the Ministry of Environment, that we are looking at the dangerous single-use plastics. Environment is now really ramping up the effort into pushing for a ban. And it really needs to be done because plastics, although they're very useful because of their longevity, they actually cause a lot of damage when they're not used when they're disposed of inappropriately, which are guilty of in some form or fashion. And that's one of the major projects that we're working on right now. I actually had several meetings this morning related to that. Going forward, we will also be looking at an intangible culture project where we want to, I don't want to be revive, but pass on the knowledge and skills of the older generation to the younger generation so we could maintain our culture. Because culture is one of the major seller in within tourism right now. I mean, if you look at the other countries, many countries have sand, sea. You know, what's special? What's differentiating us from an Antigua, from Barbados? It's our culture, our unique history, our unique story. So that's something we really want to push going forward. And overall, just general initiatives which promote a more healthier lifestyle, a more clean and safer St. Kitts. So we always really are willing to partner with other agencies, and that's something I really want to promote right now. That again, the Sustainable Destination Council, though it is an advisory body to the ministry, it is not the Ministry of Tourism. Mm-hmm. We are looking to partner with other agencies, public and private, so that we can have a sustainable destination. In fact, we just completed a destination guardian training, which helped to highlight and pass on that awareness and knowledge and bring other people into the fold. So you might be within education working on a project that in fact affects tourism, because tourism, we have one of the biggest problems is our people, our culture, and our land. We need people to be educated on the skills needed for tourism, how tourism affects them, and the different pathways within tourism, because a lot of people often, from my experience, it's not tourism, you're a bartender, you're a cook, you're concierge at the hotel. Yes. There's a lot of science in the background to tourism. You need someone to know how to maintain the lawn in terms of the irrigation system, the lighting, the ambience of the place. So those are things that we're looking to do going forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you speak there about your Plastic-Free July,
yes,
which is coming up, and the Plastic Be Gone, basically campaign.
Yes.
And it was not too long ago that on this program I had persons from the Ministry of Environment,
yes,
speaking about the movement, so to speak, towards the ban on single-use plastics. Many other countries have already implemented such a ban. We have not done so yet, but I think the intention here is to do that.
Yes.
And for the reasons that you gave and so on, and of course you would want to know, why is tourism interested in the ban on single-use plastics?
Yes.
Because we know that sometimes the plastic ends up on the beach, and
yes,
it's very unsightly, and it's a turn-off for tourists,
yes,
and that sort of thing. Now, Tessa, you have been involved in the implementation of a number of these programs. Could you give me tell me what you're doing?
Sure. Mm-hmm. So it's I've been here for about a month, so I'm still easing into things, but we did, just as Kenny mentioned, work on the Destination Guardian training workshop. That was last week, and I got to co-facilitate it with Kenny and Dynel Taylor-Williams. It was an incredible experience. We had a great turnout of public and private sector individuals. It took place over the span of 2 days, and really was an incredible experience. From there, we're just working on preparing for Plastic-Free July. It's a fairly big event, so I've just been helping with preparing for that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, now your restaurant week?
Yes. Well, I'm not the point person for Restaurant Week, but we at the ministry, we coordinate on about everything, every unit. At this point in time, Restaurant Week is something that happens yearly, but due to the unique case of COVID and to the community spread, plans have to be revamped.
Yes.
So that's where we are right now, working on that. Because we don't want to encourage or facilitate the possible spread of COVID. We want to ensure that things are done within the protocols and also in a timely manner. So, but within Restaurant Week, we still promote, we preach what we practice what we preach. We promote the use of biodegradable utensils, such as spoons and forks, even some of the plastic cups. They look like plastic, but actually made of cornstarch, so they are biodegradable. Also the boxes, we try to avoid styrofoam as much as possible. Thanks.
Okay. Now, Tessa, what do you foresee COVID-19 recovery to look like?
It's the $1 million question. And it's looking different for every sector, every country. It's happening. I think that's the first thing to mention. It's happening, and it's hopeful. It's looking hopeful for tourism specifically. That was a big topic of our destination stewardship workshop last week, is talking about just how COVID-19 has affected the tourism industry as a whole, and then more specifically island nations, more specifically St. Kitts and Nevis. So we looked at that quite a bit, and obviously in terms of tourism numbers have plummeted. They're slowly starting to crawl back up, which is encouraging. And in terms of sustainability itself, we talked a lot about before COVID-19 hit, sustainability was on a rise. It was trending per se, and we're hoping to see it continue to rise throughout COVID-19 recovery, which is why it's so important to talk about it now as we're rebuilding, as we're recovering. It needs to be a foundational aspect of recovery and looking toward resilience rather than just recovery. So it's hopeful, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah, now in terms of, because we are not getting as many travelers because of the pandemic. People are traveling less, and what though can be done in terms of promoting local tourism?
Well, for local tourism, we need to appreciate what we have for ourselves. I mean, there's often the, I think it was in 2030, but there was a slang, a general wording around, I live with vacation. And I don't think enough of us really embrace that, because I had a conversation with a person and they're not aware of the rich history that we have right here. And all the many of the things that we do when we travel. We want to go jet skiing, we want to go rock climbing, we want to go, what do you call that thing?
The zip lining.
Zip lining. And you can do it right here. But again, sometimes we don't value what we have as something we don't really have a chance to really look at what we have, because, we maybe commercialize, we see the stuff going on in the US and that, that everyone wants to try something out there. But we have it right here. And also, even within the ministry, the mission, we still have to look at the stand and see, because that's still an attraction, especially for us. We love the beach. Right now, the ministry is working on a beach rehabilitation project at the Frigate Bay, as well as upgrades to the strip, because we want the strip Frigate Bay. When I was a kid, Frigate Bay was its spot, and when I was growing up, I don't go there that often, but when I do go there, it was always bustling, having a lot of people, and we want it back to that level again.
Yes.
So right now we're looking at refurbishing the beach, have set up groins and breakwaters to keep the sand in, as well as for our safety. And even with these groins and water breaks, you're actually promoting life within the area in terms of fishing and other marine life. So it's a win-win.
Yes.
So as again, tourism affects every aspect of our life, and every aspect of our life affects tourism.
Right. Yeah. Now one of the aspects of sustainable tourism have been that of ecotourism. Tessa, Did that come up at all in your Guardian training, the whole aspect of ecotourism?
Yes, ecotourism is a huge sector within tourism, especially when you're looking at traveling sustainably and responsibly. It's this awareness of the environment around you and making sure that as you're moving throughout your tourist experience, you're being mindful of the way your actions are impacting your immediate and surrounding environment. And on the other side of the spectrum, as tour providers, as tourism service providers, as destination managers, looking at eco experiences as a way to not only preserve the environment but also get people back into nature, get people excited about getting back outside. And that's been a huge trend during COVID, especially because you have that open space. It's peaceful. It's a place that people go to recover and heal. So so ecotourism was a huge topic last week.
Mm-hmm. Now, Kenny, what is the Sustainable Destination Council doing to encourage more persons on the island to be environmental stewards?
Well, beyond the Destination Guardian Council, Destination Guardian training that we recently had, we are also relaunching the Sustainability Charter, which encourages businesses, on the tourism, but the scope for many other agencies to be involved. They promote sustainable practices within tourism, within your business, whether it's in terms of environment, in terms of not printing on both sides of the paper, turning your lights off, conserving energy. If you're a small restaurant bar, you can help manage the waste instead of sending all that peelings from the potatoes and dashing on yam to the landfill. You can compost it, pass it on to a farmer, help to feed some pigs. And we're also looking at philanthropy, so giving back. And when people give back, first thing they say, if you don't have money, you don't have to just give money. You can give your expertise, your skills, your knowledge. We are a very educated bunch of people and very knowledgeable, even that without the college degree. I've spoken to some persons who didn't haven't finished school, but I learned so much from them. And we want you to give back in cash or kind. It could be in time, because we also have beach cleanups, which is also one of the activities that we're coming up for 30th of July. We're going to have beach cleanup. We also have had community cleanups, beautification. We supported those as well. We started the volunteer day that we recently passed. And that's what we're trying to do, encourage people to be more active in terms of sustainability and overall, especially the businesses, because that's where we spend most of our time.
Mm-hmm. Now, the community, Tessa, plays an important role in tourism. We speak about community-based tourism and the initiatives that come about through the community. Now, what type of support is there for community tourism and its initiatives?
I would say a lot of support globally and nationally here. Look no further than the Ministry of Tourism and the SDC and everything they're doing. And globally, nonprofits, NGOs, groups like Sustainable Travel International are constantly encouraging community-based tourism. It's research shows it's one of the most sustainable ways to approach conserving and protecting cultural, tangible and intangible assets when it comes to tourism. Making sure that you have that local insight, that local control is so important. It's important for the visitor experience, making sure it's authentic. It's also important for the locals, obviously, the community, making sure that they know that they have a say and they know that it starts and stops with them. So there's quite a bit of support out there for it.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, there can be basically no sustainable tourism unless the people basically are educated in tourism. And what I mean by that is that they understand the whole area or importance of customer service, for example. how do you treat tourists? They understand, you were mentioning earlier, in terms of what is the rich heritage of my country, the taxi drivers and the people who are involved in the tourism industry, understanding how important their heritage is to tourism. So in other words, we can speak about heritage tourism.
Yes.
And how much of a part does that really play in terms of the sustainability of tourism?
Yes, it's very important. In fact, last year we had a workshop that focused specifically on our culture and heritage. It was facilitated by Mr. Leonard Stapleton, one of the local historians. I think he even did a book that was used in the schools for some time. But each year we can have a sustainable tourism enterprise. The theme last year was culture and heritage. It was so well received, and we think we have to focus on doing it again this year or something similar. Because a lot of the history that Mr. Stapleton was able to pass on the knowledge on in terms of a structure for houses. I mean, last year alone, Wife's village is called Village. Because that's why he got moved from the sugar factory area and now lives there. I didn't know that. But everyone said, Village. But these are things that, these are little stories when someone comes from overseas, you can tell them, and you'll be surprised how excited they are. I mean, after you live in your concrete apartment for so long, you come here, you see beautiful land area, people smiling, walking around. I mean, compared to other countries, we are very laid back from what I can see society. So it's a change of pace. People want to learn. Well, how do you guys get to that point? How are you maintaining that lifestyle? Just want to learn about us and and be a part of it. They want to go like it. And beyond that, within culture and heritage, we are also working. Another project we work on is intangible culture, as I mentioned before. That will be in collaboration with the Department of Culture. So we keep looking for partnerships. We want, because they say, tourism affects every aspect of our society, and every aspect of our society affects tourism. I made a comment to Daniel recently that what's the reason we were called Sugar City? Because we were producing sugar, the best of the best sugar. But now tourism has to play sugar. Just as tourism affected every aspect of our life, I mean, from the carnival celebrations to the way we dress, the food we eat, now tourism has taken that place. So tourism now has to be integrated into our way of thinking, our way of lifestyle. Like I just said before, the etiquette of dealing with customers, customer service, is very important. That has to be a part of us now.
Yeah, and I must say, Kenny, that while we no longer produce sugar, and while you say that term about Sugar City came about because we were producers of sugar, for many years, maybe over 300 years, producing sugar, it was what we knew, the sugar plantations and so many people working in the sugar industry, the factories there, and we have the railway, and all of that. So much that have been left, really, to tell that history in terms of, that history of sugar production. And that is part and parcel of our heritage, really. I know that we have turned the rail cart into what we call the scenic railway, which was a very creative way of being very creative in terms of, because what used to run on those railways were carrying sugar is now, they have been turned into the scenic railways and carrying people in terms of showing them around the island and so on. So that has been something very creative.
Actually, the ministry is also working on another project to, as you know, the scenic railway only ones on the mostly eastern side of the country now. We are looking at utilizing some of the rails on the western side for a trail. Hiking has become very popular, of course for the foreigners, but also locally. I've been on a few recently myself. And we want to capitalize on as I said, the history and infrastructure that's already there. So we're looking at having, there's a pilot a demonstration area within just outside challenges to Palmetto Point for the rail trail project, which is currently being expanded. We have had several meetings with different agencies and we think we recently started community engagement because we need the community within the area to really buy into the project and see how they can support it and be a part and of course benefit from it. Because one of the issues of sustainability is about, I say, people, planet, and profit. I mean, and profit doesn't have to be, as we say, prosperity, because it doesn't have to be money, it doesn't have to necessarily be rich, but you can just maintain your lifestyle, maintain your environment, maintain your family. Some people just enjoy being around plants, clean environment. That's part of the prosperity that we're hoping to bring to people. And that's why we need the partnerships to move this forward.
Right. Good. You know, the name Sugar City has still remained, because even though we no longer produce sugar, we're still a sweet people.
Of course.
I agree.
And so the name Sugar City is very much appropriate. Now, Tessa, you have been involved in, and Kenny, this resident satisfactory survey, the Heart of St. Kitts. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I believe some background first, the last resident satisfaction survey took place in 2017. So we're looking to bring it back hopefully this September. So we'll need everyone to participate, be willing to participate. But the idea behind it being getting back to the local perception of tourism, especially now as it's recovering and rebuilding, getting back to getting a feel for the local understanding of tourism first and foremost, what it is that they understand tourism as being as a local player, and then getting a feel for how locals view it fitting into their day-to-day lives. Is it an asset to their day-to-day life? Is it an impairment? And then we're going to then take those findings and put them into a comprehensive report and use that to inform policy making and decision making at local and regional levels. It's so important to that decision making, that destination management. So that's the idea behind it. I don't know, Kenny, if you want to add anything.
Yes, sure. In fact, we've already took some of the information from the last survey and begin to incorporate it within our policy right now. Because one of the issues that came out within the last survey, people felt they weren't included within the decisions that into tourism and how it would affect them, community and so on. That's why we put more emphasis on consultations, invite people to come out and be involved. And there have been some uptake, but we need more. I say we need a society approach to this. We need people to really understand we are tourism, as the commercial says.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, now the part of sustainability, of course, is that of preserving, we mentioned before, the local culture and supporting basically the local people in what they do, their culture, their way of life, and so on. And Restaurant Week, I really would have liked to hear some more about that, but because in that way, to me, that is some sustainability, because you're encouraging, the tourists to eat local.
Yes, of course. We are also encouraging ourselves.
And encouraging ourselves as well, yes, to appreciate what we have, to appreciate the local cuisine,
yes,
which is part of our culture. And that is what sustainability really is.
Mm-hmm. Especially, as I mentioned Restaurant Week, especially we encourage persons. We have a theme fruit, a theme product that we maybe planting this year and next year, and people are encouraged to produce dishes with those things as the main ingredient. Because as we go to restaurants and even the snarling bars, what you see is like rice, burgers, hot dogs.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but again, it's not part of our regular local culture. And also, most of that stuff is imported. We need to reduce our food import bill. we have become too dependent on that. Because even within COVID, that has some effect on the supply chains. That happens again on a large scale. I mean, what could happen? Even within regionally, we try to depend on those. But sometimes we're in a boat because of a storm, whatever, we can't make it here. So we need to eat local, but also be creative about it. Because of course we've gotten to a more finer, richer taste. I mean, once you get the ingredients and you have the knowledge, why not? You can try something else. I mean, right now I've heard other people doing breadfruit chips. I actually had some recently, and I really enjoyed it. So that's something, and sweet potato fries and that kind of stuff. There's something that grown locally that we could utilize because the money stays here and rotates within the community.
Now, Tessa tourism is sustainable tourism, has to rely on many factors. It has to take a multi-sectoral approach. What do you think are some of those key sectors that are important to sustainable tourism? And what are some of those factors that are important to sustainable tourism?
So, it's every sector. And just putting a blanket statement on it, I think every sector. If you're looking at government, I think every sector is in one way or another impacted by tourism and has a say in how tourism is carried out. Obviously, it starts with the Ministry of Tourism, and then other sectors tie in, the Ministry of Environment, and looking at even solid waste, looking at the way it's managed, looking at departments of culture, and I'm pulling a blank for the other departments here in St. Kitts specifically, but infrastructure, yes, all of those have a say and have an impact. Exactly. Technology. The factors being, environment. Tourists interact directly with their environment. The way that the environment is preserved and maintained directly impacts tourists and the locals, and it's all a very symbiotic relationship. So that goes as far as the other sectors as well. I think Kenny might have some to add there too.
Of course, COVID is a health issue, but it's heavily affecting tourism. And as well, tourism is affected. That's why we can't have so many tourists at this point, because having many people coming would potentially spread COVID even further, which will cause huge disaster, even bigger disaster than we have right now, which will then slow to the economy, schools, every aspect of our lives. So as I said, again, I want to put to appeal to the other agencies within the government and businesses as well, that we need your support, because as I said, we affect you and you affect us, and that's what it is made of. We need your input, because I might be here working, let's say, you're working at the Figure Strip. You as a contractor might decide what are the initial infrastructure sustainability. Look, you need to follow this particular building codes, have the wind direction and all these kind of things, because I might say, well, you need to look at the effect of having a salt pan. And I did sciences before. I wouldn't have the in-depth knowledge to make these kind of assessments. Whereas if you're in STC and you hear us mention these projects and initiatives we're trying to, you can say, oh, hold on, we are working on something in that area as well. You might want to revamp your plan because of such and such and such. Because if we get it right the first time, we don't have to call it the second time. So that's where we are.
Now, sustainability, there can be basically no sustainability without people development. People development requires training. Now, what has the Ministry of Tourism been doing in terms of the developing people, that human development, in terms of training and so on? Because these are the people that work within the sector. And these are the people who are going to carry on the sector. And without them, basically, you would have no sector. And if without them there is no sector, then basically that is unsustainable. And so therefore, working with the people within the sector to get the best out of the people within the sector, so that the sector can go on and on and on for a very long time. And it can grow from strength to strength. Because that's what sustainability really is. If the sector is getting weaker, if people are not trained and developed, if people are disgruntled and so on within the sector, then basically it is not sustainable.
In terms of the current sector, I know they are usually trained, especially for taxi operators and everything that's mostly facilitated by the tourism authority. But I know for a fact that again, the ministry is open to suggestions in terms of like offering additional training from whatever perspective that we might be lacking, the people within the sector might be lacking. And even for the upcoming generation, and recently we had an intern from CFBC that was there. And that's another thing we try to do, we try to partner with the next generation who will be taking up these roles within the industry in the future. In fact, I was on vacation at the time, but I know they also brought in the other interns that were doing internship at that point in time into the ministry, and they gave them a tour of the different facilities, taking them into a farm in Harfetry area to help show them how to incorporate sustainability practices from that point of view. That's the Eco Park, which, as you know, is a balance between tourism and agriculture, so trying to promote there. And while they were there, they were also giving etiquette lessons, because if it's on the table, it has to be done a particular way. And that's not really, that's perhaps in some circles that might be common knowledge, but a lot of us, we're not really aware of it. But those are things that the ministry has been taking steps to do. Yeah.
So therefore the ministry has been involved in, the...
Oh, and there's also the tourism education program within several schools. I think it's a pilot project started a few years ago. I think they're all in 4 schools. I might be wrong, but it's basically a program that trying to incorporate tourism and sustainable practices within the current school curriculum, and that's also part of the Plastic Gone project that we're hoping to ramp up going forward, where we get more access to the school and help them to really incorporate sustainability and tourism into the practices. I think Nevis actually has a more robust program right now. I'm hoping that we get there as well, and we can have it in all the schools. And again, some of the discussions that's for the people who are going to be at the front desk, the bed makers and stuff like that. No, it's for people who want to be in management as well, who want to be technicians, who want to be electricians, computer whiz. I think of Stishman, what's the name of this company? I think he originally started working with companies, a hotel or something like that. And he expanded, started his own business. Now he employs several other people. So again, tourism is not just about the person just waiting on people, just having fun. There's a lot of science and the technology and a lot of thought has to go into that process. Management, governance, policy making. It's let's say from every level, there's a spot for you within tourism.
Tessa, what would you say you have seen as some of the challenges to really promoting sustainable tourism here in St. Kitts and St. Kitts?
I think hot seat. No, I think with so much that the SDC and the Ministry of Tourism is doing, and they are doing so much, it can be easy to forget to promote it. Whether that be, you don't want to feel like you're bragging, or you don't have the time because you're doing so much. I think that can be a challenge, because promoting and reporting on the things that you're doing is such a huge part of bringing in that local control and information sharing and even capacity building like we were just talking about, making sure that the public is aware of everything that's going on behind the scenes that is ultimately for the good of the public. I think, to me, that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed and we've been talking about and working toward solutions for, is just publicizing the things that are going on, the amazing initiatives that are underway, and the projects that are to come, the events that are to come, because there really is so much, and it should be shared, I think.
How much more can I add to that? I said, well, PR is a concern. It was actually raised within the SEC meeting the month before. That though we are doing so much, and though we're doing so much, some people that are aware of what we're doing, or even why we're doing it, unfortunately. Because sometimes they will say, but you guys should do this, you guys should do that. But we're like, but we've been doing this for some time now, and this is how it's going to affect you, what we need you to buy in. And some of them generally are not aware, unfortunately, even though we've been beating the drum for several years now. And even one of our partners at the Mr. Farrier, he even suggested that we do a little bit more promoting some of the billboards and so on around the island. He actually pointed at several spots that we could utilize. And I don't want to, I hope, I'm not misquoting him, but he said we'll get a little discount as a partner, a little free here and there, because that's what we need. Because we can't afford to pay for everything, because you might have a facility that's available to us, patent technical skills, that you can not only spare, but you can help to donate, and that's what we're looking for.
Now, going forward, especially in the COVID-19 environment that we are in, sustainable tourism will have to take into consideration the implementation and of COVID-19 protocols, the adhering to those protocols, and also vaccination. What do you have to say on that? We're not living in the same world. The world has changed.
Yes.
I agree. I think in order for tourism to come back and to succeed, because it can come back, but it doesn't mean it'll succeed in the long term. I think in order for it to succeed, people do need to adhere to COVID protocol and make sure that we're not getting too relaxed. We're not saying, oh, it's been over a year, things are good now, the vaccine's coming out, it's good now. There's still so much that needs to be done to make sure that that there don't continue to be resurgence of cases, and that travelers can return responsibly and carefully and safely, to make sure that it's not stop and start process. Obviously some of that it happens and it's going to happen, but the more careful you are, the more you adhere to protocols, the less likely. So very necessary.
Because what has become so important in this environment is that we just don't want travel. But no one would want to jeopardize the health of their populations because of travel. And so therefore, we may want to have cruise ships coming and all of that sort of a thing. But at the very same time, you do not want the health of your people to be jeopardized. And it has to be done in a very safe and secure manner. And that at the moment basically is part and parcel of any form of sustainable tourism all around the world.
It has to be. It has to be for it to come back the way that we need it to, just economically speaking. And I think another aspect of making sure that COVID protocol is taken into consideration is developing strong partnerships. I think tour providers and tourism experience providers around the world, cruise ship lines, they haven't been sitting around, twiddling their thumbs. They've been working on developing systems to make sure that when they come back, when destinations are ready, that they're doing their part to make sure that it's safe. So I think now is also a great time to be focusing on developing and firming up those partnerships with maybe those more international organizations that directly affect your destination.
And basically, we cannot talk, Tessa and Kenny, about sustainable tourism, but those who work in the industry, have to make sure that they protect themselves, have to make sure that they do all that is necessary if they want the tourism industry to really recover. Because we're speaking about COVID-19 recovery and the tourism industry, sustainable tourism.
Yes.
And those who work in the industry must ensure that they do what they have to do, including the non-pharmaceutical measures, which is the wearing of the mask and the hand sanitization and the social distancing, and importantly, vaccination. Those who really want and who are really seriously interested in any sustainable tourism. At this present time, tourism cannot be sustainable if those who are working in the industry do not put in place for themselves these measures, both the pharmaceutical, the vaccine, and the non-pharmaceutical. Otherwise, they would be paralyzing. And I'm using that word. They would be paralyzing the tourism industry. And if the tourism industry is to be sustainable, we're talking here in terms of livelihoods. Livelihoods have to be sustained. Lives have to be sustained.
Yes.
And we have to be serious about this. Those in the tourism industry must be serious about this if they're serious about any sort of sustainability of our tourism industry here in St. Kitts and Nevis. What are your views on that?
I think your views. Well, I agree that measures need to be, people take the measures seriously, as both pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical. I know there's some pushback, and understandably so, because some people are concerned, some people are not fully aware of what the vaccine is about. There's misinformation, a lot of misinformation out there. But I think the message is getting through. People are making a decision that needs to be made, because I had the conversation with a particular person within the industry. I won't name names or the business, but they said they had a conversation with their boss, and they will be saying, we've been in contact with foreign companies who want to work with us going forward, and this is the reality, you guys need to get vaccinated. And he said, I thought about it and I went, and I got see all these guys behind me, they joined me. So the word is getting out, and as I said, we might not be fully on board. Some of us might genuinely have health issues, but those of us need to educate ourselves and speak. I will speak to a physician, because your physician might be unique. I don't know what you're going through physically, but if that's the case and you get the okay, and why not? Because at the end of the day, tourism is our bread and butter, and as I said, barring serious health and some cases religious issues, I say do whatever you need to take with social distancing, because sometimes even those who are vaccinated, we might still feel, I'm vaccinated, I can walk around with a mask and go socialize here and there, but you could still be a carrier. And that needs to be considered in terms of all of our actions. So that's my basic point of view. I can't choose for anybody, but I say my thing is educate yourself and try to make the right decision.
Yeah, because as I began by actually saying that tourism has been the hardest hit industry with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has significantly affected travel. And of course, the travel industry and the tourism industry is like bottom and chair, basically. And the most significant issue right now for the travel and tourism industries is that of how do you do it safely?
Yes.
How do you do it safely? No one would want to travel to a country that is awash with COVID-19 infections.
That's true.
And no one would want people coming from certain hot spots where you have so many COVID-19 cases. There is a certain fear. There is a certain fear of travel right now. And the question is, how sustainable is tourism? How sustainable, Tessa, is tourism? How sustainable is it?
It's all about the players. So it's based off of how sustainable the players would like to be. The tools exist. The research is constantly being pumped out. Organizations are becoming educated in sustainability now more than ever. Travelers are looking for sustainable experiences. So it's growing in popularity. The information's out there. I think if anyone would like to know about sustainability, they have no shortage of resources to explore. Online, in person, people around you here in St. Kitts, you can reach out to the SDC. I think when tourism is managed responsibly, when destination managers have the essential tenets of sustainability in mind, when managing tourism, it can be extremely sustainable and extremely beneficial to both the tourist and the local community, the environment. And it can be a holistic benefit for a destination. So I think it can be and has been very sustainable.
You know, a microscopic organism referred to as COVID-19 is really challenging the sustainability of tourism. And it is a fact because if you look at all of these Caribbean islands, most of them are sustained by tourism.
Yes.
And because of the pandemic, and because tourism has been hit so hard in the Caribbean, because some of these Caribbean islands, they have all of their eggs in one basket, which is tourism. And that cannot be a sustainable practice, to have all of your eggs in one basket. That is not sustainable. You have to have some of your eggs in another basket. Otherwise, because if you have all your eggs in one basket, when something happens to that one basket, all the eggs in that basket mash up.
Yep.
So it is now we have to look at not just sustainable tourism, even though that is the discussion here this afternoon, but how sustainable is agriculture? And feeding ourselves.
Yes.
So sustainable tourism has to go along with other things that are sustainable, so that we just can't focus on sustainable tourism. All of our eggs in one basket, and when something happens, that basket mash up, and the eggs mash up.
Yeah. That is true.
I agree.
Yep. But one of the issues we've pointed out with that, I have a several discussion with that, personally and professionally, the viable alternative. Because you have to be in reality, economies of scale. Because when the discussion I had recently with someone, it's like, she was actually foreigner. I mean, discussing some of the issues we had in St. Kitts and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, we actually import sugar, where we're producing sugar. And she couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, because we produce at a higher quality and a higher price, so this way we import it. Again, for agriculture, that might not be possible within certain areas, but again, it needs to be explored. And also, we need to look at how can we make it more productive and viable, as a viable alternative to importing that many stuff. Is it that we haven't have farmers who are really oriented to large-scale farming? That could be a possible issue. Is that not enough support, as some might say? I'm not that involved to be shortened, but that's something that could be looked at, because I've heard farmers saying it's easier to get a loan to go on vacation than it is to get a loan to start a farm. If that's the case, then something needs to be done. I've heard some discussions being put forward, but I'm not really, I don't recall exactly what the content was. And I said, for agriculture, we have to look at when we look at agriculture, one of the major issues is our water consumption and the proper utilization of water. I heard a recent announcement saying that there's going to be a drought, as you can see here in Antigua, that's coming. Has that announcement reached the proper persons? And are we as a people, are we taking that one to heart? Are we making changes?
Conserve water?
Yes. And that's the thing, one of the biggest issues within any area of sustainability, whether it be tourism, agriculture, land preparation, is mindsets and changing the minds of people. It's much easier to move a stone. Even construction, you could look at, as long as I have the skill, I couldn't build a wall today. But if I have to depend on someone else to bring the stone, bring the water, and all that, and they don't see it as a urgent matter, everything gets slowed down. And that's what we're doing with the mindset of people. That's why we're trying to push the whole thing about awareness and education and training. But I said, people, and that's why we're trying to encourage the young ones, because young ones are more malleable, they're more receptive to stuff. But at some point, even within that context, sometimes the government has to mandate certain things, because even, as I said, we work in an environment in terms of the consultation of pests and so on. And I've gotten some feedback from them recently, and a lot of the major the major users and producers such as the supermarkets, they say, we're on board with the plastic, but it has to be across the board. It has to be enforced. Because one of the issues I recall seeing was that there's some concern of pushback, where in some countries, because they do the other things such as well. When the ban was in place, there was a reluctance to go to that supermarket. So if I'm pushing the ban on plastic, you're not. I'm losing business, you're not. So again, people need to be aware, but sometimes again, there has to be some level of enforcement that has to be put in place.
Right. And Tessa, even though travel is down, sustainable practices must continue.
Definitely.
Be care for the environment. You don't throw your waste anywhere. How you care for heritage sites and how you take care of them. And how do you care for the forests and the trees and all of that sort of a thing. Those things are important. And even though travel is really down, that sustainable culture has basically to be preserved.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It goes on, whether or not there are tourists.
Yeah.
The culture, the environment, everything that you see and experience in your day-to-day life, it still has to be maintained. Yeah. It should still be respected.
Yes.
You should still be proud of it and take pride in it. And I think ultimately when tourism rebounds, it'll only be stronger because of that.
Yes.
Because of the things that you're doing now. And I think with travel slowing down, we talked about this in our workshop, people are actually becoming more aware of the way that their actions impact the world around them. Just, we saw on the internet images pop up when there was a brief period when planes weren't flying. We saw how clear the air was getting. We saw, in polluted waterways, certain wildlife return. So I think people are becoming more aware. I think pros and cons with COVID. I think it can be hard to mitigate single-use plastic when so many of the things that we usually are able to use reusable bags, reusable cups. It's hard to do that during COVID, just with the way it's spread. But I do think the awareness is still there, and I think it needs to stay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we are going to go to the phone lines, and the numbers to call are 1-718-577-2916. That is 1-718-577-2916. That's the overseas number. And the local number is 465-2555, 465-2555. We await your calls. Right. You know, one of the things in the Caribbean with tourism and the building, how we build, we have to take into consideration sustainability in terms of how we build. Because depending on how we build, we could be destroying a lot of habitats. Additionally, we build along the coast in the Caribbean, of course, because the whole idea is that you must, as soon as you walk out of your hotel, that you're on the beach.
Yeah.
But at the very same time, we live in a hurricane zone. And the places that are most impacted, the areas most impacted, are that of the coast. So, does sustainable tourism require a paradigm shift in terms of how we build hotels and so on?
Well, that's a good question. And again, it's one of the issues that came up in our destination guidance training. The person pointed out in terms of how some of the buildings that the strip are designed and so on. They actually said to us that they praised Marriott because Marriott took those considerations into consideration, those issues. But again, sustainability, I think that's what might have been part of the vision behind Kitchen Hill, where you can have all the luxury and amenities of any major metropolitan area, but still maintain a balance with nature. And I prefer that kind of design personally. I mean, that might be for some people, but it's something that's, I think, that maybe a bit more a form of balanced approach, where you try to integrate your infrastructure and the building with your natural environment, where instead of going to the beach and clearing the seagrass, which affect and the mangroves and all that, affecting the birds and the breeding grounds of fishes, and those kind of things, you look at what you have and you see how you can integrate what you have, integrate what you want into what you have. And that's what we did in the older days. We looked at the environment. We didn't have any large bulldozers to clear these huge swaths of land and a lot of concrete, but we managed, we live comfortably. And I can tell you, because I can say personally, sometimes I go to certain luxury places and so on, and I don't feel special because, well, these people live how I live. They have the trees, birds around them, and they have Wi-Fi. I was like, this is how I live at home. This is how kitchen looks to me. But again, I also living overseas, and I tell you, it's sorely missed when you live in a concrete 4x4 apartment. So I'm saying we should embrace what we have and market it to the best of our ability. So, there's argument people who want the beach and the lifestyle and so on, but we need, again, the coastal development and the negativities that come with it, along with the environment, and looking at more inland to see what can be done in a more sustainable manner. But that's my personal 2 cents. I'm not an architect. And also, again, in terms of certain government agencies building and so on, again, this is my personal opinion. This does not necessarily affect the opinion of the ministry. I think they need to look at how integral the ministry, the tourism industry is to them, terms of the building codes and what's not, and the projections that coming forward in terms of how tourism would affect the water supply, the landscaping and so on, and integrate it more into their plans and policies.
Yes.
There's a gap between those things, where over here you're doing the best that you can, but then we're doing something here that will be detrimental to you and vice versa. Again, there needs to be there's a need for more dialogue.
Yes, and good point, because you have to pay close attention to tourism infrastructure and how that infrastructure impacts the environment. And I must tell you that sometimes that has not always been considered by some as a very important factor in terms of tourism infrastructure and the environment. So, for example, governments may build a marina or a pier or a hotel in some area, but it is important that the environmental impact assessment be done. So it's not just about the development of the tourism infrastructure, but you have to think down the road, how is this really going to impact people?
That's true. And also,
so you really cannot think about just the now. You have to think in terms of the future.
Yeah. Where partnership that has been taking place in other countries and here as well, is that we can't just got tourism as a success just in terms of arrivals and dollars coming in. As I said, there's all tourism in Italy, but I'm also aware of a beach, I think was it in the Philippines. I think there was, the example that we used was the one where Leonardo DiCaprio did a movie there, and then the beach became so popular and it became so overcrowded and polluted they had to actually close the beach. So while you brought in a lot more persons and it was profitable for a time, how much more revenue have you lost because of what happened there? And
yes,
maybe some may not even be able to be recovered. So that's we need to look at it. We can't keep measuring tourism in terms of how many arrivals, how many people came aboard today, how much money they spend. Because the cost of tourism, I think something that's not factored into the viewpoints and definitely the budgets of some other government agencies, where tourism is going to have 100 guests using the road. The road might have been designed for 99 at this point. The next year I have 3,000, I have 200 coming in. How your projection might have been, at the least this road can last for the next 2 years. Because the higher traffic coming for tourism, you won't get another year and a half tops. So then you have degraded infrastructure.
yes.
So these are factors that need to be looked at. And again, there's a shift coming and going on. But as I said again, we need a more integrated approach to how we view tourism and how it affects us. Because there's a cost to tourism. It's not just, we have to maintain the airport and we have to maintain the internet, the food that's coming in. What is the unseen cost of tourism? Both in terms of tangible stuff, in terms of infrastructure and so on, what about the wear and tear on our heritage, or the loss of our heritage? Because that happens a lot when you get tourism oriented. You try to make a quick buck as much as you can, but then in making a quick buck, you lose the thing that attracted them to you in the first place. So,
yeah, and while we spoke about, Kenny, in terms of the preservation of the local culture, with tourism what you have is the introduction of foreign cultures. And sometimes the foreign culture is not necessarily a culture that you really want. You have the introduction of certain things that are, adverse basically to the culture, whether it be drugs, whether it be, trafficking, criminal ways, and all of that sort of a thing. So that has to be looked at as well. And this, any sort of a sustainable tourism as well has to look at the reduction in crime of a particular place and the criminal elements. And that's why it's so important that tourism works along with national security. Because the less crime you have in the country is the more tourists are attracted to the country.
Definitely.
Because tourists don't really want to go to a country that is crime-ridden, where you hear there's a lot of stealing and killing and all of that sort of a thing going on. Because in the end, that will kill any idea of sustainable tourism here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So the more at peace the country is, and the less crime there is in the country, is the more tourists are attracted to the country. And it is more that the country is seen as a sustainable destination for tourists. Is there anything that you would like to say? We are basically more or less out of time. Do you want to say anything at all, Tessa, in terms of your work, what you're doing, before we go?
Sure, if I could just say anything, it would just be to amplify, honestly, the work that the SDC and the Ministry of Tourism are doing. Make sure you're following them on social media and staying tuned to events coming up, projects coming up, and definitely stay tuned to the resident satisfaction survey here in hopefully September. So keep an eye out for that. A lot of exciting things coming down the pipe. So, and thank you for having me.
Right. Kenny?
As you said, you can keep an eye out for us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The name on Facebook is St. Kitts Sustainable Destination Council. We also, one of the branch, well, not the branch, but an offshoot of the sustainability is of the SDC is the Heart of St. Kitts. You can also look at that page for more information as what's going on. And as long as, and you can also reach us by email iasdmc.sk@gmail.com. And if you need more information from us, you can also find us in the Ministry of Tourism. Phone number is 471390. And we are around, and as I said, we are looking to partner with everyone. As I said, sustainability is about everyone. It's not just, I just mentioned, it should be sustainable tourism, it should be sustainable agriculture, sustainable environment, and I said too so recently, environment needs, should, and I think the relationship is definitely blossoming. They should and will be one of our biggest partners, our most support partners. Because we depend heavily on our environment, and the environment does not just not simply refer to the plants and the trees. It also looks at our built environment. I said we build on beaches and so on. That affects the natural environment. We also need to look at how we build and how that would affect us going forward. Our resources are not limited. Our resources are not unlimited. So that's basically just of what I would like to leave with everyone.
Right, but before you go, Kenny, what can you tell us about a little bit more in terms of, is there any sort of a date set yet for Restaurant Week? Is there a date set? Is the ingredient chosen as yet for Restaurant Week? What about your plastic-free July?
Yes.
Do you have anything yet planned for the plastic-free July? Any special events? And additionally, what can you tell us about the Heart of St. Kitts Foundation? We don't seem to hear too much about that. So I just want to ask you those three things before we leave.
Okay, sure. With regards to restaurant, as I said, I'm not the point person, but I have they have been meetings and discussions going on. So I think because of the COVID and the community spread, it's been revamped. That's the most I can say at this point in time. I'm sure there will be an update coming.
The Restaurant Week is being revamped? Yes.
I'm sure there will be an update shortly.
Okay.
With regards to the Heart of St. Kitts Foundation, yes, we started this foundation as a philanthropy initiative to personally give back, both local and non-locally. When you come to visit, we're looking at them if they want to donate. Some people come and visit and say, oh, this is a great idea, I like this place, I like to leave a little something.
Yes.
We try and put a system in place, set up a governance structure, because we want to be as transparent as possible and ensure, you understand, you're not giving into the pot of the government, you're giving towards a particular sustainability issue that you're passionate about. That's the gist of the SKNIS Foundation. Plastic-Free July, there are a few initiatives that are set in place. We have the panel discussion coming up on the 8th. We are working on that right now. The theme we're working with is be climate resilient, reduce single-use plastics. That's where we're going. That's what we're trying to push right now. That's where we are. We have looking at panelists from several areas: environment, education, healthcare, along those lines. Even some of the standards and stuff like that. We need to different policymakers. I think originally last time we said environment, we didn't mention the plastic here and all that. But again, because of community spread, we have to revamp and trim back some of those more large social events. So that's where we are. We are still working on the beach cleanup. That's stated for the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. But there will be a calendar and a poster coming shortly. We are also we're collaborating with the Ministry of Environment. We are doing consultation with the other industry, they did most of the consultation in Bastille with supermarkets and stuff like that. We are looking at having something done within the rural areas. Again, we want everyone to be involved, be aware, and be on board with the whole plastic ban and play their part. That's it. And then I think that's more or less it. Just am I missing anything? I don't want to miss it.
No, I think in terms of Plastic-Free July, just staying tuned online or on social media rather, for different types of competitions and prizes coming out. So
yes, because we have to, in light of the current situation, we have to rework some of the original plans.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I definitely want to thank both of you. Tessa Perkins, our country coordinator, consultant with the Ministry of Tourism. It has been a pleasure having you on this panel. And Mr. Kenny Manning, Sustainable Tourism Coordinator. I know that tourism is going through a very tough time because of the pandemic. It is one of the hardest hit industries, not just here in the Federation, but throughout the entire world. We all want to get back to travel. We want to get back to seeing family and seeing friends in other places, going sightseeing and so on in other places, experiencing the culture of other places. However, it has to be done in a very safe and secure way. The recovery, in my estimation, is going to be very slow. And it will depend upon how quickly this pandemic is behind us. And what the science is basically saying at this present time is that people have to get vaccinated. Vaccination is very important if we are to come to any sort of normalcy or near normal levels with getting things back together. Of course, it has been months that we have not seen a cruise ship at our ports. The ports are basically, the cruise ship ports are basically very lonely. They too are feeling the impact. They are crying. The pandemic has done this. People are coming in at our airport, but the numbers have significantly decreased. Quarantines, people getting infected, having to be in isolation, all of that have been very difficult to deal with. And yet, our most important industry, our main industry, in order for it to get back on track, the people working in the industry have to do what they have to do in order for the industry to go on, which means adhering to both the pharmaceutical and the non-pharmaceutical measures. We will get there. It will take time. It requires patience on our part. But we all have to do our part in order to sustain lives and livelihoods. And the tourism industry has played a significant role in the employment of people, the sustaining of their livelihoods. And in order for that sustainability to continue, we have to do our part. So thank you very much to both of you. Next week, we will be back with another edition of Working for You. I want to thank all of you who listened to our program today. Thank you very much. Your company from week to week is well appreciated. Until next time, I am Lesroy Williams.